SciVive Chapter 5, Power. Skills. Know where you stand. Choose your initial state. Starting from the same state every time improves consistency. If you want consistent results, you must perform your action from a consistent base. Your physical and mental focus and environments must be practiced and correct. This includes your emotional state, the color of the room, the temperature, and how you use your body. Which outcome will profit you most affects your bias, perception, and performance. For example, if you listen to a stereo system, it's very likely that your brain will think the sound is coming from where you are looking. If you are positioned perfectly between the two speakers, and you are listening to a sound that is supposed to sound like it's in the center of the sound stage, if you look up, then it sounds like it's coming from up there. If you look down, it seems to be coming from down there. Thus, if you're ever trying to judge the quality of a sound system, you must make sure to point your head in the right direction, or you'll alter the results. Don't train negative. If you shake your head in disappointment when you miss a shot, guess what you will do when you miss the shot in a non-practice environment? You're more likely to do the same action in the real world that you've been unconsciously practicing. Miss shot, show disappointment. Screw up, show disappointment. Being disappointed and looking down or shaking your head is the opposite of performance. You can't make a good shot when you're not looking at the target. Keep your eye on the prize and don't waste time practicing bad behavior, conscious or subconscious. That missed shot is in the past. Always focus on the present and the future. Focus. When the rubber hits the road, you will perform at the average level of your practice. You're unlikely to do much better or worse than your average. Focus on the action, not the outcome. Revisit it every once in a while to make sure that the process is still the right one you should be focusing on. Some large companies focus on process too much and lose track of the reason the process was originally good. If you put your focus into the area where a thing is happening, your brain has all kinds of mental and physical tricks it will use to get you better results in that area. If you're playing baseball, focus on the ball. If you're bowling, focus on the pins. You can still make changes while the ball is in your hand. Focus on those things you can interact with, the things you can touch and influence, and the world will bend to your will. You must focus on that which is coming at the expense of that which is past. The future is rapidly approaching, and the past is forever out of reach. The past is but an idea, unattainable, while the future is unavoidable. Change the focus of your mind to get better physical results, limiting feedback and focusing on touch. Typing speed. Richard Hart holds his personal typing speed record of 116 words per minute on a laggy computer with a Logitech K120 $10 keyboard. He claims that it's probably the finest of all the cheap keyboards. Good key feel, rather short travel distance, standard key positioning. You might ask, what's the point? The laggy part is important. You would think that on a laggy keyboard, you would type slower because it would take longer for you to verify that what you were typing was coming out correctly. You would be right up to a point, but once the lag is so high that you realize the complete and utter futility of even trying to see what's coming out, you can focus all of your mind directionally on your fingers. If you're good at typing, you already know when you've made an error. You don't need the screen to tell you. Thus, by cutting out the feedback loop of the screen and the visual system, and only maintaining the feedback loop of the touch system, you have a more pure data stream to focus on, and one that is perfectly in sync. Where you put your focus, your body tends to naturally locate resources. Immersion and getting good at something. If you are constantly immersed in the language of some activity, does it improve the likelihood that you'll get good at it? Yes, but being near it is no excuse for being good at it. Being good is a lot harder than being near. Finding things that other people haven't noticed is a hell of a lot harder than thinking the same things everyone else thought of. Modifying meaning and belief to execute a specific program. When we feel uncomfortable and the hardships kick in, the horror kicks in, the compulsion kicks in to read all the websites and play all the games and hook up with all the girls and stop being conscious of our problems, you try to do whatever it takes to stop existing in the hardship. You feel the need to execute a program so hard and fast, or repeatedly, until you can't think anymore. All of the thinking power is now being used by the distractions, so you are not consciously allowing the hardships to affect you. Meaning and belief can be perspective changed. One can choose to enjoy the hardship, for every challenge fosters an opportunity. One can choose to see the pain as a goal, embracing it and wanting it. You can consciously choose that. Now, you are conditioning your body to stop fighting and say to yourself, "Yep, this is what we do now." Computing power. Display. ClearType is Microsoft's implementation of sub-pixel rendering technology in rendering text in a font system. The system attempts to improve the appearance of text on computer displays. Do not use quality settings on your graphics processing unit, GPU, or ClearType. It will blur up all your work. Internet browsing. Middle click or control left click to mass open windows you are interested in. Then they can load in the background and be ready for when you want them. This doesn't work great if your computer runs out of memory. Some useful Chrome plugins include Tab Outliner and Add Block. Writing text. When typing emails, comments, and forum posts, type them locally in your own text editor. Otherwise, you may end up very angry when backspace takes you off that page and deletes all the data instead of backspacing in your text. Or their form submission doesn't work, or you are posting too fast, etc. Risk management. Anything you generate in this world, whether it's text, images, or videos, you need to have it backed up. For if it was important enough for you to spend the time making it, then it's important enough for you to spend the time to make sure it doesn't get accidentally deleted. Accidental deletion. Hitting cut twice means you actually hit delete on the first thing, unless you pasted it first. Or remember to Control+Z a lot. Install a clipboard manager to warn you and keep a history of what you've copied. RAID stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. All spinning disks need to be in RAID. It is not a backup. Density is your friend. In Outlook, whenever you right-click on a folder under an email account, you get an option, Add to Compact View. If there's a Compact View option, use it. Virtual desktops. If you use an OS which supports multiple virtual desktops, you could also just put your distractions on one desktop and your real work on another. Then there would be little question as to whether you were really working or not. Search. Let the computer search for you. Don't use your eyes. It's easier to type what you are looking for than to try and find it by visually searching around. With the program launcher in the newer Windows versions, you can click the Start button and type what you want and it simply appears. Similarly, you can click Command plus Spacebar on a Mac to search. It would be nice to see such a feature, to be able to find that tab lost in your sea of tabs, if perhaps the Tabs Outline plugin didn't have the feature. Exclusivity. Power is when you can take the elevator into a department store's special floor, flash your black card, and get free premium quality cappuccino that people without the black card can't even buy because they don't accept money there. They don't accept money. All they accept is power. Power is currency. Power is exclusivity. You're likely to meet other people there who are already powerful. Power is proximity, and proximity is power. Your proximity to other powerful people amplifies your power. Money is not power. Knowledge is not power. Power is power. In physics, power equals mass times time times speed. Power is unused time, potentiality. When you have more things under your control for a long time, going faster and faster, power increases. Power has carry-on effects. If you're not included, you are not enjoying those effects. Power multiplies force. You've got to have force to multiply. Who gets to decide? The guy that pays you decides what you do with your time. If you're a boss, your boss is the customer. If you're not a boss, your boss is the boss. If you're a criminal, your boss is the police. Having the right status is a force multiplier that allows you to control others. Force multipliers are what power is. Money is not power. Knowledge is not power. Power is power. Having the money to buy what you want is one part, if it's something that money can buy. Knowing where to spend the money is another part. Getting them to actually deliver what was advertised is another issue. Getting it done on time, yet another still. Then, after all that, finding out that what you wanted wasn't actually the thing you should have wanted is a great way to explain how just being able to afford something isn't enough. Do you even have a complete list of all the items that are for sale that you should or shouldn't want? How often does that list get updated in comparison to the update and release cycle of improvements, innovations, and new product categories? Spending your money wisely to maximize happiness is more than a full-time job, even if you are so lucky enough to be able to afford what you want. The difference in power between respect and money. Money is what you use to get other people to do things for you, and in return, someone other than you will do something for them. Respect and charisma are what you use to get other people to do things for you, in the hope that you will do something personally for them. In the end, they achieve similar goals in that they motivate the other party to do a thing. In one case, the payoff is directly from you, and in the other, it's indirect, and through the money that they will give to someone else that is very likely not you. Navigation. Streets and highways. Did you know that streets, boulevards, and even numbered highways go east, west, and avenues and odd-numbered highways go north, south? Did you know that cities have an origin address? It's usually where the city was first founded. All the new streets grow out from that position with higher numbered names farther away, and they're divided into 4: northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. So if you're near the center, you could find 2 first streets. Use north, south, east, west. Left of something means the opposite of what you want it to. If the person you're speaking to is on the other side of what you're looking at, your left is his or her right. It's easier to say north, south, east, or west, or reference another landmark, such as closer to the ocean or sunset, because then it doesn't matter what direction one is facing while giving directions. Be specific when you guess how long it will take to get to somewhere. The specificity will make you notice when your guesses were wrong, and they'll get better with time. Often, getting ready to go somewhere takes as long as getting there, and people often guess wrong how long it will take to get ready, or account for the crap that always shows up like, where are my keys? Oh, I need to get gas, there's traffic, and I have to help my kid with X, Y, or Z. Stop using the word here. No one knows where here or there is. Be specific. Where is here? Consciousness. Tune out the rest of the world to tune in on yourself. If consciousness is the most important and valuable thing in the entire world, then you should be mindful of what you spend that consciousness on. If you understand sports, you get more of that in your life. If you're good at business, then you get more of that in your life. If you read a lot of news and play a lot of games, you are basically foregoing some of the things that are most powerful and rewarding in the world, which are things that multiply how you affect other people. To invent, to build, to influence are the things that scale. Think about the quality of what you're doing, not just the quantity. Is starting another dumb thing what the world needs? Is taking advantage of people's poor programming attention skills what the world needs? If you spend all your time absorbing music that other people created, reading books which other people created, watching movies which other people created, reading comics which other people created, watching other people have fun, listening to other people's jokes, then it's very hard to be producing. We are not full duplex. People get good at what they focus on. The more you're willing to focus on a goal that other people aren't, the more you'll stand out, the more contributions you'll make, the more money you'll make. And guess what? People love to do what they're good at, and people get good at what they focus on. You can change what you become by changing what you absorb. If the world is a light and you're a crystal Swarovski bear, whatever you look at, that light shines onto you, and now you're that color. If you focus on negative energy, now you're a negative person. If you focus on positive energy, now you're a positive person. You will become what you focus on. If you focus on why you're not good enough, you're going to keep on being not good enough. In theory, you'll tend towards that direction. Tony Robbins says, if you focus on the wall, you hit the wall. If you focus on the road, you get the road. It just makes logical sense. It's tautological. Your brain is constantly running simulations. SciVive doesn't like the term question, so a lot of people like Tony Robbins like to use the phrase internal questions. First of all, that's bullshit, because people without language, which human beings didn't have 200,000 years ago, were still doing that what might happen processing without language. It's obvious that you can do processing without language. Remembering. Please don't let remembering be the end. please do not become a crappy version of an encyclopedia. Synthesis is the end. Don't become Google. And stop training your kids to be Google. You just need to be Google long enough to get something in working memory, to create something beautiful. You just need to remember something, a marker, an index. You need to know how to use Google. If you know how to use Google, you can have a bad memory for the rest of your life, because the internet is not going away. Choose what you know. So many people find it useful to not know things, such as their partner cheating on them. A lot of people actually have terrible memories. They don't remember to brush their teeth, what day it is, what time it is, when they last ate. They don't remember birthdays. They don't know what season it is. Sometimes that's because they don't truly care about those things. Let your iPhone remember them for you. Your iPhone will remind you when you need to send someone a happy birthday text, or gift, or selfie, or whatever you're sending them. Your phone will wake you up. You will not wake you up. You are a crappy alarm clock. If something that falls out of your circadian rhythm needs to be addressed, your brain is not going to do it for you. Your phone will. Let your phone do all the remedial tasks. Let your brain do what juices it, what gives it passion, what engages it, what is at the limit of its understanding. A lot of people that may seem like idiots may actually be using all of their considerable memory powers on areas they actually care about. Give your brain the best memory gift it will ever receive, and start caring about something. Filter and accept only what is essential. This reticular activating system that subconsciously decides what you hear and what you don't, what you see and what you don't, what you focus on and what you don't. Why not use it to empower you? Let's look for what is right in the world. Let's look for what is powerful. Let's dream the dream. And let's starve out that disempowering feeling about everything that's wrong and everything that can't be and all the fear. Let's drown that out. Let's only look at that for the minimum amount of time we need to invert it, to see the solution, to execute that beautiful solution and never have to think about the old destitution. You never have to think about quitting again when you're not a smoker anymore. You just don't smoke. It's no longer a fight. When you change your identity, it becomes much easier to execute the behaviors that identity has. When you keep an old identity that has try and fail as a component of it, it's harder to do the new habit. Give yourself the gift of focusing on what you want, not what you don't want. Give your brain the gift of knowing what you want so that you get more of it. When you fill your life with what you want, you'll find out that you don't have space for unwanted behavior because it just doesn't fit. It's really simple, and lots of people have solved it. You just want to think it's complicated and hard so you don't feel like a bigger failure. You don't feel more regret. It's like writing a book. Is writing a book hard? No. It's just like writing an email to a friend. How come more people don't do it? Somehow it feels unrewarding at times during the process. SciVive would support people exploring what there is in the world as far as consciousness is concerned, and would advocate at least the preemptive execution of all the other tried and true awesome. Solve tomorrow's problems tomorrow. You may have already heard about scale. We live in Middle Earth, where we're one order of magnitude bigger than the smallest things, and one order smaller than the biggest things. As fun and trivial as that is to know about, SciVive is going to tell you why it's trivial. If you're good at understanding how things work in the arenas that you don't live in, you're not likely good at the critical things that may actually help you here in the world you do live in. It's just like people who want to solve problems they don't have. Some people think that when they lift weights, they're going to get so big they don't fit in their clothes. They should really worry about getting that big first. Then, after that happens, they can work on fixing their clothes. Don't waste your time fixing a problem that's not yours and probably won't ever be. If you're still worrying about the universe and where it's going, that's not your problem. You're not making a left turn at Mars. You don't have a spaceship. Worry about the little blue ball you live on. Allocate your mental resources. The amount of uptime of thought that people have is greatly dependent on the habits of internal focus that go on in their mind. If people are honest and aware when queried as to what it is they were thinking about, the range of things that people actually spend their time focused on, concentrated on, and are concerned with is so very wide. Some people are thinking about sports. Some people are thinking about gossip. Some people are thinking about family, some about friends, and others about ideas. Dependent upon the amount of time that remains engaged, if you perform thought-killing activity like gaming, or remedial tasks such as data entry perhaps, then in theory, you actually are less alive. You have had a portion of your consciousness and your ability to become unique and to grow destroyed. It's reasonable to see some of the outcomes that we see in this world, where one guy will win nearly 100% of the time fighting against another guy. One guy will win nearly 100% of the time in a test of mental ability versus another guy. One guy will know nearly 100% of the time the answer to a question that another person will not. It is because of the amount of available uptime and the application of uptime to a goal. The law of attraction is actually perverse. Every moment you spend focusing merely on what you want instead of focusing on doing the actions that get you to it is a waste of time. Focus on the real world. If you focus on the real world and not fiction, when you care to disengage and screw around, you can screw around better because you'll be wealthier, fitter, and have better resource material to write and gain enjoyment out of other people's fiction. If you're wondering if the world is actually just a digital simulation on someone else's supercomputer, you're worried about someone else's problem. You don't live on that scale, so it doesn't matter. Be effective and useful. Be effective and useful when you're deciding what to do with your life. For example, playing chess. Think about it. If you were alone on an island, would you play chess with yourself? No. You would build a hut and a boat and make your life better. That's what you should learn to do when you're learning skills, investing in companies, or when you're helping other people do things. You should do things that actually benefit their life and aren't wasteful time sinkers. It is the same reason it's often good that companies lay people off. If a company can get the same job done for the world with less people, then it's the same as you finding a smarter, better, more effective way that takes less time to get something done so that you can go do something else with your life. If a company is just an abstraction or just a combination of people, then you can treat it like a single person. If you don't need a person to do a job, free them. Let them do something useful with their life instead of trapping them. Not only trapping them, but forcing someone else to pay the price for them pretending to work. This is a competitive world with limited resources, and the romantic partner you want has options. If you're doing self-improvement for a potential lover, you can throw the idea that you're enough out the window, because you're never what you could be. You're never barely what you should be. So what's the art? The art is to be the most that you can be, comfortably within reason. The Pareto principle says you're getting 80% of your results with 20% of the effort. Eat healthy. Most people don't. Be fit. Most people aren't. Learn some game. Learn what an attractive person looks like. Most people won't. Now you've won. Now you actually are unique, measurably. You can do things other people can't. You can lift weights they can't. You can make smiles they can't. You've got skills they don't have, and that takes years to develop. Guess what? Those years you put in are the years that put you past everyone else. If you thought that you've got to start this game and outcompete other people because of your uniqueness, you're dreaming a dream. Don't believe the feel-good bullshit. There's real work to be done. There's real excellence to be had. And you don't start with it. You end with it. Learn only the essential skills. You can sacrifice depth of knowledge for more effectiveness on whatever level you're on. Because of the recent gun craze, many more people practice target shooting and want to do better at it. You do not need to know how to load your own ammo, load your magazines, clean your own gun, and break down your own gun, or even draw your weapon from your holster. You don't need to know any of those things in order to be a better target shooter, because the things that make you good at target shooting have nothing in common with any of those other things. Knowing how to use your breath, knowing how to squeeze the trigger the right way, knowing how to hold the firearm the right way, understanding how to use your body symmetrically, and all the things that go into being a good shooter have nothing in common with being a good reloader of ammo or a good tactical draw from the holster without shooting yourself in the leg kind of guy. The statement is that you need to decide whether you're going to trade depth of knowledge in a bunch of other levels for excellence in the level that you're at, or maybe excellence somewhere else. You can't have both. If you dedicate yourself in a direction so hard and immerse yourself so hard in a behavior or an outcome, you begin to see the whole world through that lens. It affects what you think is important. It affects what you spend your time on. It affects who you meet. It affects where you exist. And most of your life will be muted, deleted, and unseen. You might neglect family relationships. You might neglect showering. You might neglect knowing about the news or brushing your teeth or eating. When you are so in a fixed state, addicted, single-minded, and focused, there's the risk that you have great personal pain during those rare moments when you notice that you sacrificed much of what you might want in your life for a different goal, either by choice or by obsession, either through a healthy decision or by having no choice and having an addiction. The important part of being effective is you and your brain, not the tool. Let's say you learn how to have a schedule. Everybody's cell phone these days has a calendar on it, a little alarm clock, and reminders. How many different scheduling apps could you use? You could use Outlook. You could use Trello. There's all kinds of different programs that you can use to manage your schedule. Are those things important? No. What is important is that you have a list of what you need to do and the times they occur and the alarms necessary. It doesn't matter whether it's a wrist watch or a pocket watch. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just another tool. What is important is that you're using your time the way that you want to use it. Part of the giant myth of personal development is that if you read a book on how to manage your time and you finish it, then you'll think about reading another book. No. How about you just hope that you were already smart enough to read a good book and you just learned how to execute the lessons learned within? Realize that whatever gains you might get from switching are going to be very small, as opposed to the gains you would get by having any system over no system. The stubbornness of the misguided. Instead of getting diminishing returns at things that you're already good at, why don't you perhaps allocate the time you want to put into learning and making up for big gaps? For some people, their big gap is that they're working on the wrong thing. If you're working the wrong thing, then almost no amount of reading is going to convince you of it. It seems like people don't want to be convinced externally that what they're doing isn't right. Try to talk someone out of their religion sometime. Give that a try. Or try to talk them out of a love interest. They're not interested in it. It is not easy to find the right way to help people who have picked the wrong thing to do. They just need to discover it on their own. Maybe there's a line of questions that can be asked in the style of Socrates, where you interrogate what's learned together. Ask a bunch of if questions that he already knows the answer to, and you think you're coming up with new answers. Some people may think of this as condescending. People may not like when someone asks a bunch of questions when he or she knows they already know the answers to, or they just tell them so they don't have to be manipulated until getting whatever outcome they prefer from the interaction while extending time. Reading is good, but doing is better. Many people who have read a lot of self-help literature probably need to stop reading and do what they already know. If you were actually doing what you already knew, you would be living a dream. You'd be bragging about how much ass you're kicking, how fit you are, how good your relationships are, how happy your prospects are, and how proud you are of your activity. It doesn't take but a couple of YouTube videos to get to the point where you know what you need to do. The hard part is getting you to actually do it, and that's the magic. The magic isn't knowledge. The knowledge has been out there for free forever, and it's only getting slightly better, if at all. Some of the classics are still classic. If you can't find advice to execute, but you've got tons of willpower, lucky you, you're going to have a very easy life ahead of you. For everybody else out there who knows what they need to do and they're not yet doing it, they are going to have it a little bit harder. Intellectual learning and understanding isn't what you need to get where you want. What you need is a kick in the ass, either self-delivered, externally derived, or helping someone kick you in the ass based upon your request. A strategy can be used for good or evil. A lot of people don't want to become evil, and that's good. Therefore, a lot of people don't want to do things that evil people do, but that's where the problem occurs. How can a person gain great power, wealth, influence, impact, intellect, and possibly affect the world unless he or she does much of the same behaviors that evil, malintentioned dictators and bad people in the past have done? For you see, the effectiveness comes not from the evil. The effectiveness comes from the strategy. The strategy can be used for good or evil. Who has good marketing? Google. Are they doing good deeds for the world? Yes. Most people think so. Who also had good marketing? The Nazis in Germany. Did they do good deeds for the world? Most people will tell you no. Is having good marketing therefore evil because the Nazis did it? They also made the trains run on time, cared about people not smoking, built roads. They did a lot of good things. Unfortunately, they poisoned many of these good things because they did so much evil as well. So what's the point? If you want to make a huge impact in this world, you want to make this world a better place, or you just want to make lots of money, or you just want to be loved, you are going to need to do what works. And a lot of what works is what worked for both great people and terrible people. If the world is lucky enough to have a good person, such as you, using the same tactics and occupying the same receptor sites on the global consciousness, it's much better that those receptor sites get filled by the good that you're doing than by the evil that the jerks are trying to do. If there's a lot of people out there with podcasts trying to convince you to buy their get-rich-quick bullshit, wouldn't the world be a better place with your podcast sharing the same ideas but not trying to scam people out of money? Merely avoiding what you don't want is insufficient. SciVive's theory on life is that a lot of people spend a lot of time doing things, not because they want to do them, but because they don't want to do something else. If your marriage is unfulfilling, you might try to spend all your time at work. If you don't want to write a book, you would spend all your time playing games or doing whatever else. One way to overcome this is to decide what you want and then go and get what you want. Now, it sounds simplistic and that everyone is already doing that, but they're not. If you think about something you want, and that's what's clear in your mind, instead of what you don't want, you're more likely to go do it. Greed could be a useful way to beat procrastination. Just decide what you want and then do it. Do it leisurely, do it quickly, do it however you want. Just get what you want. Don't do what you don't want. Don't live a life of avoidance, doing things only because they're not something else. Learning opportunities are abundant. When we're truly interested in learning a topic, we have Wikipedia, which is fun to read. We have Discovery Channel, which is fun to watch. We have podcasts. They're fun to listen to. If you're actually interested in something in this world, there's a nearly limitless amount of content locations. We have libraries and free books. There's a nearly limitless amount of information for you to absorb and enjoy in regards to any topic that you find interesting across any media format you prefer. If you're truly interested in learning something, you're probably not waiting for class to start in the morning. In Plato's classic book, Republic, he suggests there are 3 classes of people in society, and the state should educate those classes differently. They assign standard time frames to those education periods. Why on earth would you teach all your students on the same time frame? That's quite stupid. There are some people who are ready to be professors at the age of 18, and there are some people who will never, ever be ready to be professors. How tragic would it be to use some artificial timing that has nothing to do with the student and nothing to do with the update of science and nothing to do with the update of education tactics? The Pomodoro technique is a time management strategy that involves breaking work into 25-minute chunks. It works because it flips your brain's desire to hunt things that are scarce, and it makes your time available to do work scarce. Therefore, your brain tries to hoard it, whereas quite normally you have an overabundance of work, and therefore you don't get any benefit by just doing it. You lose out on all the other scarce things you're not doing because of the work. When you've got some type of mission that's all-consuming, that's all you think about, and is all you know you should think about, when you finally have found a way, a strategy, a method to think about that mission, then your old habits and your old vices begin to fade away and become replaced with more valuable ones. If you used to be addicted to women, women matter a lot less. If you used to be addicted to games, games matter a lot less. That's a great unexpected side effect of focusing on what really matters. All the things you used to have to try and focus on not doing, you don't have to focus on not doing now, because you don't have time to focus on not doing them, because you're too busy doing what you love now. Car progress analogy. People are like cars in a race. You can have a very fast car, but if pointed in the wrong direction, you are not going to cross the finish line. Your intellect is the size of your motor. What you focus your mind on is your fuel. Your goals are your steering wheel. Your suspension is your persistence. Your tires are how well your goals match what's possible. Your body is the car's body, and the more fit for purpose it is, the less hard you will have to push aerodynamically to your goal. Sometimes, if you go too fast, you will be pulled over by the law, and it will take longer to get where you are going. If you ever get there at all, perhaps you crash. Go through common problems people have where they don't get where they want to go by missing key parts of a well-running car. Analysis paralysis. Should you have kids? How many and when? How does one make the decision between working harder to make money, then one day spend it to change the world, versus starting to change the world now and stop making money? There comes a day when you can't make up the time you've lost thinking about it instead of taking massive action. Pick your battles. There are an endless amount of challenges. You will always be presented with conflicting ideas. The question is, which shortcut to action pays better? Sometimes not delaying is better, but sometimes waiting is better. Achievement. We are all capable of great things, even the worst of us. There has always been and always will be a few things standing between us and greatness. SciVive will call these the great traps. Some of these could be described as circumstance, lack of opportunity, lack of time, complacency, it's good enough, lack of creativity, lack of follow-through, too individualistic, no teamwork, not individualistic enough, or no unique ideas. We can also be held back by greatness that is too small in scale, or learning things that become valueless. It's pretty inspirational to hear about people that you might think shouldn't have been successful, but who ended up wildly successful. For instance, Dr. Seuss apparently was going to burn his book after it got rejected from 20 different publishers. He met his friend on one side of the street that he was walking on, which distracted him and prevented him from burning it. If he hadn't been walking on that side of the street, he said perhaps he'd be in the dry cleaning business now. Walt Disney has a similar story. He was rejected over 300 times before Mickey Mouse and Disneyland became a success. You hear stories about really old people getting started, like Mr. Sanders, Colonel Sanders, who started KFC. He was perhaps in his 50s. Morgan Freeman got his first real good acting gig at not so young an age. Stan Lee is another example, having created his best works as an almost middle-aged man. The point is that if ever life is hard for you and makes you want to stop, there's a lot of people who have had it a lot worse, and it's worked out just fine for them when there was no clue that it should have. The past poisoning your future. Here is the secret on the downsides to believing your own bullshit. If you come up with a new belief system, and it's not identical to your old one to some degree, you must admit you had it wrong before. Just like a giant company that doesn't want to lose a bunch of sales on their worst product by coming up with a better product, which will cannibalize those sales. The greatest thinkers and the greatest companies that are having the most impact screw themselves over with their greatest enemy, previous success. A great title for that is The Greatness of the Past poisoning the future. You see it with musicians, you see it with thinkers, and you see it with scientists. If you haven't produced something smarter, different, or better than what you originally created, you are no longer the person that you used to be. You are less powerful and less effective. If you're Tony Robbins and you take 15 or 20 years off from book writing, and the next book that you write isn't version 6 of your original book, where you got something wrong, fixed it, and came up with better ways to understand the world, and is instead a book on how you should give your money to other people that will make you money in a 401k and a fund, that's terrible. That is not a proper development of what could be widely defended as the most successful success coach. You have failed. If you have stopped producing, if you have stopped creating, if you have not proven yourself wrong and proven your own ideas, you drank your own Kool-Aid. You rested on your laurels. SciVive doesn't want to say you shouldn't be rewarded for it, but the world would be a much better place if you were still kicking ass as you used to. For those that don't want to be so hard on the greatest and most productive of us, who want to make it okay for them to rest on their laurels and just chill and write out their success, know that they're going to pay that with their lives. They will die more painfully and earlier than necessary, as will everyone they love and all of their offspring, because they decided to not perform and not produce. Those were the heroes. Those were the guys that had the easiest path to make a huge and great impact in this world. And they shirked their responsibility or pretended that they didn't have responsibility to themselves, to their ancestors, to their offspring, to their loved ones, to their friends, to their culture, to their fellow men, and or to their future selves. Worry about things you can actually fix. Having sex and curing aging are the same thing from the guy's perspective. Guys don't dream about baby showers and baby clothes on kids. They just dream about the act of procreation. For the same reason, you don't have to dream about making people immortal or never age. You just need to worry about doing the things that cause that. You don't have to worry about the outcome. You just have to worry about curing the little parts. You're not trying to create super long-living human beings. You're just trying to cure cancer or heart disease and all the diseases that kill them. Punching hard to get the result you need. In physics, we have rolling and starting friction. It's basically a subset of Newtonian motion, whereby an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion. That is why, if you're already moving, it's very easy to keep moving. And if you stopped, it's harder to start. The work week. Breaking through starting friction. Using stimulants like caffeine might pay the same dividends in uptime, downtime, volatility, increasing energy to overcome starting friction costs that having a sleep cycle effect creates for animals. The same could be true for CPUs, obviously not with caffeine, but with the constant application of electricity as a stimulant. This type of logic can also be applied to being in the zone if you play sports or have bursts of creativity. It's also a way to recognize that very often what you need isn't more weak force, but just a burst of strong force, like getting the brakes to lock up on a car. Some people think that they just have to stop doing everything else in their life to be productive and be useful. There's a disagreement between two ideas. If you want to make something so it doesn't need willpower anymore, and you amplify the chances that it keeps occurring, then you need to fight through discomfort and fight through identity issues and become a person that does that task, whether it feels good or whether it doesn't, because it's just what you do. it becomes easier to do it than it is to not do it. How do you get to that place? You get to that place through whatever trickery and effort and trying hard that you could possibly think of that allows you to do it for long enough that it sticks as a habit. Maybe you use motivational posters, self-speech, a coach, or a team, or maybe you use drugs or hypnosis. It doesn't matter what trickery you're using to do what you should do. But once you've done it long enough, it becomes a habit, and it becomes harder to not do it than to continue to do it. Time management. Be 3 times as effective. Studies have been done and have determined that it's good for you to get 8 hours of sleep. It changes based on your genetics, light, location, and diet. Let's call it 6 to 8 hours. 24 hours in a day with 8 hours of sleep leaves you with 16 hours. 16 hours is just 2 other 8-hour periods, at least one of which most people are used to working and culturally accepted as working, not including transition time. A 9-to-5 job is 8 hours a day, but they actually take an hour off for lunch, so it's really only a 7-hour job. The question is, if you were willing to sacrifice all transition time and every other activity except sleep, then you have 16 hours to work with. Most people are used to working 8, and they're used to taking off Saturdays and Sundays. Your maximum hourly increase is from 8 to 16. We'll just exclude transactional costs, like driving and dressing and preparing. We just want this math to be a little easy. You could go from the 8 hours of productive output that most people have, 5 out of 7 days, and move it to 16 hours of productive output 7 days a week. The math is actually pretty simple. 16 times 7 is 112. If you work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, it is 112 hours of work per week. The math is 112 hours at 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, versus 40 hours a week. If you only slept and had no transitional time at all, you still cannot triple your productive hours. It's not possible. Which is why if you want to be more than 3 times as effective in the world, you need other people or ideas that aren't you. Because no matter how much you break your own balls, you are only worth 3 times the hours. One could argue that immersion is more valuable because hard ideas have startup and spool down time. Or one can argue that more time is less valuable because you burn out and get tired of focusing on a certain thing. Either way, let's just call it about 3 times effectiveness based on total sacrifice of any non-productive enjoyment. You want to watch a movie? You're not in the movie business. Disallowed. You want to go outside to eat? Nope. No eating outside. As a matter of fact, no getting up from the chair. No. It's not that great. If you want to really make breakthroughs in this world, you've got to use people that aren't you, because you can only get about 3 times as many hours. Now, can you change behavior and do things that are better tactically and strategically? Sure, and you should, because as said previously, more hours is only worth a maximum of about 3 times. When you look at the people ahead of you in this world, 3 times isn't going to get you even close, and it almost doesn't matter who you are. A great example of this is trying to cook a steak by a committee where 10 people come into a room, look at the steak, and blow their warm breath on it, trying to cook it. You could increase the number of people on that committee to 100, and you still wouldn't be reaching the temperature that you need in order to cook the steak. You need 1 hot device, not 100 warm devices. The critical path. When you want to create an outcome and you've got limited resources, most people choose the objective based on outcome filtering of what's the critical path, what's the least number of steps with the least amount of risk. Where are we now compared to where we want to be? Then you look at where you want to be and you say, well, what do we want? We want customers, and we want our customers to like us. Do we let our customers develop the product that they will fall in love with? Yes. What's the minimum viable product to get out the door, to start getting feedback with our case study, to start optimizing the product and make it amazing? We already have a good product. Every money value that we already spent will generate the best return because it's the most sticky and most useful product since it's already been optimized by some pre-customer test cases. It's already more reliable because we tested it with those customers and improved it. So now the new customers get it better. This also enhances the likelihood that every new customer that we get tells a friend, and we might be able to get some free customers from word-of-mouth advertising that we didn't have to pay for. Those customers tend to stay longer. The upside to that approach is that it cuts out a lot of needless steps that would waste time and energy and not create a better product for your customer and not create a better market fit by choosing the right pricing, loading the scope, and doing one thing really well instead of doing 10 things in mediocrity. That way, the lean startup methodology and critical path analysis are effective in those areas. However, there is a downside to using critical path analysis and lean startup minimum viable product style of creation. Some of the products that you could have built that may be more profitable than the original idea is, and you may have easily pivoted into, you never notice because you filtered out and cut off the other novel and interesting ideas to focus on the one product that you decided was the most important. When you use novelty search, when you care about bottom up, when you do what is interesting and perhaps you have enough energy to survive that indeterminate space for longer, then you can end up with unpredicted, excellent reward outcomes that you would never have been able to find or figure out from the end point backwards style. In summary, by choosing a destination, an outcome, and reaping the rewards of not wasting energy falling down paths that are maybe dead ends, you have a high specificity, you don't get false positives, and you don't waste time. You also have a low sensitivity, and you don't capture what you might have been able to do. So it is the path between what you want, which is profitability in most cases in business, and where you are now, which is the idea stage. The point is, you might be able to create some good things in the world regarding people making better decisions and taking responsibilities in their own lives. Use an interesting, novel search pattern, since human beings are trained to care about that more than brute objectivity anyway. You must try to optimize the objective, the minimum viable path to get the thing done, because of the uncertainty in the likelihood of that path over the others. Quit wasting time trying to optimize outcome strategically and with the concrete vision, and be happier with a more flowery, throw a lot of mud at the wall and see what sticks kind of style. If you don't do it, you don't know it. If you didn't build it, you didn't invent it. Most of what you think you have invented, you will find, has already been patented by people a long time ago, or they already tried it and it failed. For example, the human eye. We aren't the only animals with eyes. They're developed separately and unrelatedly time and time again, at least 50 different times across many different animals, because they serve a very useful purpose. For the same reason animals developed useful eyes separately, you likely came up with a cool invention to solve a common problem, just like everyone else did. You just know about the problem and solving it more than you know about their attempts. Someone who spent time reading patent applications might have the opposite experience. It's easy to think that what makes a man rich is what he does. In fact, what makes a man rich is what everyone else does, what the society you operate in allows you to own, what the judges and lawyers will let you keep and not tax away, what good work your employees perform and how much your customers will buy, and how many people didn't choose to compete with you or do the same job at roughly the same quality for free. You can't get rich in a vacuum, unless you're in the space exploration business, or thermoses. A lack of balance is the definition of pain. How do you get people to focus on commonly forgotten ingredients of a successful recipe? What is more important in a cake? The sugar, the flour, or the cooking? You need them all or you don't get a cake. By this analogy, you can see that a successful person such as Bill Gates isn't wealthy solely because he started a business. He's wealthy because he started a business and the entire world bought his products. When you see that it is the world and its systematic behavior that causes things to happen, then you can understand better that a different human Bill Gates would have performed the same task, perhaps at a different time. There has to be some merit in shifting the focal point externally. If you're a seductionist and you have the normal training, it is very self-centered and not system-oriented, the same way that many self-help and personal development materials are. When you include your relationship to the system and their relationship to the system, you can save a lot of time when you're not swimming against the current. Egocentrism is one of the lowest forms of understanding.